Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cubcast. During this podcast, we're going to be sitting down with remarkable heroes who've been through extreme adversity. These heroes are going to guide us on how to conquer life's challenges or even day-to-day struggles that we're going through on a daily basis. And it's going to give us confidence and resilience. Guys, tune in and let's conquer life's challenge together. Guys, we have a very special guest, a hero, one of my good friends who has taught me a tremendous amount, who's taught so much. An amazing person with an amazing story, and we could really learn so much from him. Please welcome a very special guest, Sir Ben Taplin, hashtag got action. Welcome, Ben Taplin. How's everything going? How's your day going? Please tell us how everything is.
Thank you so much for having me, Ike. I really appreciate that. Put a nice smile on my face, remembering those got oxygen days, so thank you for that. Things are going fantastic. I'm doing really well.
Great
Happy to be here.
to hear. I really miss you. It's been a little bit. But Ben, why don't you give us a little background, where you're from, and just tell us about yourself. Tell us about who you are.
Sure. So I was actually born in Israel, in Shari Tzedek Medical Center.
Really?
Yes.
I wasn't really sure about that. I didn't know that totally.
Wow. Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't even know.
So I was born there, but when I was one, moved to Lakewood. Grew up in Lakewood as a
Oh, wow.
child, and then Brooklyn, and now here in the city.
Oh, wow. So how's your Hebrew? I never heard you speak Hebrew before. I don't really know how
You don't want me
that
speaking
is.
Hebrew. Hebrew is not my.
But Ben, why don't you tell us about how life was before the accident and how did it even happen?
Sure. So I was a regular guy, just like everybody else. Played sports, active, traveled, and just a regular guy. Um,
Yeah, I even know you as a guy that likes to travel till today. You like to go. I remember even with the oxygen tank, you're running around town
yeah,
with
that
that.
hasn't
That was
switched,
pretty
but
cool to see.
I was just a regular kid like everybody else prior. Then I got a lung infection and ended up being in the hospital for a long period of time.
Oh, wow, wow. And how? Why don't you tell us how this led to your coma? Like what began? How that even happened? We know that something that I know that I've heard that you had ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is a very serious situation, and you were on ECMO for 2 months. How was that? Why don't you tell us about what is ECMO? Tell us more about ARDS and how that even happened.
Sure. I mean, you did your homework here, that's for sure. So to bring you back, prior to the hospital, I was feeling a little bit, I had chest pain, which, I mean, happens. People have, they have
Mhm.
pneumonia, which I had, and most people just ignore it. They go to the doctor, they get a little bit of medicine, and they move on. In my case, it kept on getting worse and worse, and ultimately we called Atsala, and I,
Wait, this is worse over days or over
short period of time.
weeks?
No, short period of time. It wasn't that long, but it started intensifying. So when,
You're just like a regular cold. We get a cold and then we get a cough and like that, right?
I would say it was a little bit more acute. It was a little bit more painful than just a cold, but it was intensifying, and I realized it was getting more and more serious. So we went to the hospital, but in no way, shape, or form did I think that the way that it actually came into being would have happened. Um, Went to the hospital. They right away put me on some antibiotics, but that was all we thought it would be. They came over to my father at some point and pretty much said we're just going to monitor him for the night.
So this is overnight. This is the
Yeah,
nighttime.
this is in the evening. They told my father you could go home, and that was that. I thought when I came into the hospital that I'd be out the next morning, no problem. Little did I know I'd be there for a couple months. So what
Oh,
happened
wow.
is in a just really concise fashion, I had a lung infection in my lower left lobe. So a person has four lobes in their lungs. There's the upper and lower. And mine was in the lower left lobe, was where the infection was. And the plan was to use antibiotics to kill the infection, to crush it. Ultimately, instead of the infection getting crushed, it for some reason just exploded all over my lungs, and that's really how it got the
Oh
domino
wow.
effect. And one thing led to another, and my body started to shut down.
Oh. And then once your body kind of shut down, they put you on
Yeah,
ECMO.
I mean that's a long story in and of itself. They had to transfer hospitals because the hospital I was in didn't have ECMO. Just for your listeners, I would just say ECMO, for those that don't know, is basically a lung or heart machine outside of somebody's body doing the job of the lung and heart to give it a rest. And hope
So they had to transfer you mid coma.
so
They can do
yeah, so
that.
I was intubated. So once you're intubated, they could move you, but it's a
Okay.
very complex thing to do. It takes a
Oh
lot
wow.
of personnel and a lot of machines. You can't just walk up and just walk out. I was completely out. I don't remember any of it. And my mother told me it was a very snowy night. It was probably one of the worst
Oh
days to
wow.
have to.
What time of year was
This
this?
is in January, early January.
Oh wow.
So
And how long were you in a coma for? What was that like?
two and a
How
half months. A coma,
two and a half
a
months? Wow.
coma. There's two types of comas. There's one that somebody falls into, and there's one that's induced, where they put you out. I was in that type of coma, which means you generally don't remember anything, and you're in a very
Oh
very strong sedation. So they're putting you on things like Versed and
yeah.
fentanyl and things that really
Oh
really
wow.
knock you out, but it's controlled by the doctors. And the reason they do that is the person can't be up. In my case, they at one point told me if I would have been up and was experiencing the pain that I was in, my body would have died. Like a
Oh
person
wow.
can't.
Yeah. So you had to be on many medications, but how they even know like, okay, this is a good amount of medication? How they know like that's pretty cool. How they know
That's
like
medical
what to
school.
give you.
That I can't
Yeah.
answer.
Exactly.
I'm sure a
Exactly.
doctor could explain that a lot better than I could.
Yeah. So what was before you continue? What was going through your parents' mind? Like, what were they saying? What was like something that you remember? They were telling you what happened. Like,
So everything I know is from what they told me afterwards. During the fact, obviously, I wasn't awake. It was a very, very difficult period for everybody, my family, my
wow,
friends, my
yeah, of
parents.
course.
Really, I mean, they prayed a lot. They were trying to do the best they could, but it was definitely a very, very, very difficult period.
So they probably thought like it's possible that you weren't gonna make it, but I'm sure they were positive. Like,
So I actually spoke to my parents about that. They were always optimistic, no matter how bleak it sounded.
wow,
And there was a
beautiful.
time period where there's no that most people definitely gave up, including the doctors. The
Oh
doctors
wow,
were doing the best they could, but they felt like there wasn't too much else, and my parents were always trying to
oh
go
wow,
above and beyond and trying to come up with
it's
solutions.
amazing.
When it's your kid, I mean, that's just what you do. You never give up.
Yeah, I guess credit to your parents for the positivity. I
Incredible.
guess the nurses there also, I'm
Yeah,
sure,
nurses,
was
doctors.
a
I had
big
a lot
part.
of incredible people. Obviously, Hashem wanted me to be here, but
Yeah.
there's no question about it, a very, very difficult time.
So Ben, now that you wake up after 2.5 months, what was going through your mind? Like, what do you think? What was the first thought that went through your mind? Like, was it like,
Great question. So I'll try to, just for your listeners to try to understand just a little bit of the context. Waking up from a coma is not like you just wake up from your sleep. It takes around, in my case at least, I only know my case, but if any of your other listeners were ever in a coma, I'm curious to hear how it was for them. But for me, it took around a week and a half to fully wake up. And even when I woke up, I was almost like, I think the scenario of like a baby would explain it. Like, I wasn't able to move, I couldn't talk, I couldn't do anything. So, the way I would describe it to your listeners is
oh,
imagine closing your eyes, waking up, and then opening them, and then imagine that you're just laying in bed and can't do anything. What do you do then?
oh wow.
How do you go about life in that scenario? You're trached.
So something that I know that when we get up in the morning, like we like to, there's something we say is Birkat Shachar. Us Jews say Birkat Shachar. Something we say is thank you God for giving me the ability to move my body and move my, you know, that type of idea is like you have to start stretching and moving your body. Not everyone after a night's sleep. So imagine this is 2.5
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, it's something that we all take for granted. All of us, we just get used to
Yeah,
what we have, and the truth is, it's really
exactly.
incredible that your body just wakes up and that you could see again, and you could talk, and you could
So
hear, and
yeah,
you could smell. These are things that,
yeah,
for people that are deprived, they don't take that for granted.
yeah. So sometimes we all have everything, and life is just easy, and we go through life, and it's we don't sometimes we don't even think about it, like our health. And every day we can thank God that we have these things that we can do in the morning. We can get up from our bed. We can go to the bathroom. We can wash our hands. We can, get dressed. And that's a gift, something that I'm sure that you found a little bit more when you realized you didn't have it.
Sure.
So like for me, when I was going through my situation,
Yeah.
like doing these things were a gift that I was so thankful. So now that now we see the thankfulness is, I think for me it's very important to get up in the morning and say, wow, thank you God. And appreciation, I think, is the biggest thing, and that's what brings happiness. But continuing on with your story, we said that you now that you got up and it's like you couldn't speak, you couldn't talk, but now when did you start acknowledging what was happening, and what was your thought process?
So that took a little bit of time for me to really realize how bad the situation was. It wasn't like I just understood overnight. The nurses would tell me a little bit, but even at that point, I was still getting a lot of painkillers and I was still heavily drugged. I was still sleeping most of the day. So that did take time. I didn't realize that, for example, shortly before I woke up, I couldn't use the bathroom. I'll tell you a quick story just for your listeners, just to give you guys a little bit of context. I had a
uh,
catheter, and I'm sure some of your listeners know what that is, but basically, it's when a person can't go to the bathroom, they have a tube that collects the urine, and it gets collected on the side of a person's bed in the hospital. My mother and a couple of the nurses and doctors were gathered around where they collected the urine and were going ecstatic. They were going crazy, couldn't believe what just happened. And my mother noticed my face that I didn't understand what was going on. And I was like, I still remember, I was like, what do they make such a big fuss about? Like, who cares? My mother came over to me and she said,
Yeah, and it's also a private thing. It's just the bathroom, and we don't
yeah,
like
it's like, okay,
mention
like
that.
I peed a little bit. Okay, great. And my mother came over to my bed and she said, either it was the day before or 2 days before, you couldn't pee at all. You were still on dialysis and they weren't sure
Oh well.
if I would ever be able to get off of that. So that's just a small example of something that I had no clue that that was going on. And it's something that we all take for granted because we all get used to things. And one of the beautiful parts about Judaism is that we have a concept of making a blessing after we come out of the bathroom. When we wake up in the morning, like you said, we say blessings that, thank you, God, I was able to wake up. Thank you, God, that I'm able to see, that I'm able to walk. For some people, that's not a given. They can't do that. So it
Yeah,
makes us much more conscious. And for somebody that had it taken away from them, it makes you appreciate them so much more. But even I am guilty of getting used to things again and forgetting.
yeah, yeah.
So it's important.
Yeah, for me also, like I just recently got into breaking my leg and
Right.
recovering over the last 2 months. I'm forgetting,
Yeah.
and things gotta come up. Things that come up during the day, like you stub your toe, and then you realize a little bit. Oh wow, look at I can walk. Look at the blessing I have.
Yeah. I think that's part of life. Hashem obviously made it that we forget things, but it's important to have podcasts like this to remind ourselves and for others to hear and even take a moment, even if somebody takes one moment to say, you know what? Thank God I could smell. Thank God I could see. It's worth it. It's worth it for that.
Yeah, that's really a gift that we take advantage of, and take advantage of our all the activities we have in the day, and we can just do everything. And something you didn't have at that time. It took you time, I'm sure. And now you're 2 months. Like how is it like? Okay, now you're in the hospital. Okay, when did you start getting up and standing up and start moving and you know doing your therapies and that stuff? When did that go on?
So this part I'm sure you can relate to, and it was a real process. It took a while. A couple months in, they started coming to my room, and therapy would just try to lift up my legs. And just lifting my legs after almost 10 times, I kicked them out of the room. I was in so much pain. And it was a process.
Oh my god.
Then they started getting, they lifted my legs. Then they were able to get me to the side of the bed just to sit up. Then it was, walking 2 steps. Then it was walking to the bathroom. Then it was, walking around the ward in the hospital. So
And you use a walker, I'm
yeah, I
sure,
had
right?
people holding me up. I had a chair behind me. I had oxygen and monitors. Everything was a whole to do. It wasn't just, oh, you just walked up. It was with a whole team of people. I was extremely
Wow.
frail. I was in tremendous pain. I would throw up
Yeah.
all over the
So
place.
what was this mindset right now? Now you're getting up. Now you're walking. How'd you have that positive outlook every day to get up again and kind of push yourself again? Like, how'd that even come about?
So to be honest, it was extraordinarily difficult. The pain that I went through that was
Oh my god.
catastrophic. I mean, I was learning how to breathe again. I was so getting off the trach, getting off of all the narcotics that I got addicted to in the hospital, and learning how to walk again. All
Yeah,
at the
you're
same.
probably for a long
Yeah.
time on probably a lot of
So
medications. Yeah,
it
that's
was very, very, very difficult. Um, I had incredible family pushing me and incredible friends, but
wow, beautiful.
aside from my family and friends, which played a huge part in this, when I woke up from the coma, I couldn't really do anything. So I used to spend a lot of time thinking about it. And I think this is
Oh,
very important for all your listeners to know is that, and everybody could do this in their own way. And you don't have to be waking up from a coma to have this thought process.
yeah, because we all go through daily struggles. Everyone has their way of
Yeah,
God gives everyone what they can
right.
handle. So
So for me, I had to come to a realization that I could either give up and just rot away in the hospital, or I'm going to have to put in tremendous effort, but I'm going to live a life worth living, a meaningful life, a life where you can help others in your own way and do the best you can.
because I'm sure you didn't want to be like after time. Okay, you could have negative days, but then you're like, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to get out of
Yeah.
here. So the only way to get out of here is to
I would say negative
work hard.
moments. We all have negative moments. I don't think people have to have
Yeah,
negative days. A day is, if somebody's having a negative day, then they have to pull themselves up and think about why did I have a full day of this, which people could have. But I think that people have moments. You could get out of a moment. It doesn't have to define your hour or your full day. And yeah, it is a choice, and it's a difficult choice. It was tremendous work, and we could get into it. I still have struggles from this that I still live with, but I was able to get to where I got to, and that's because of it's not a choice. It's the only
exactly.
way. And if you view it as a
So
choice,
I'm
you
sure
almost
your
fail.
family, as you said, your family was very positive, and I'm sure that's what got you and pushed you
Sure.
hard. But do you know, like, of a time where you got support or guidance from somebody that really helped? Do you know, like, a specific time where it was really helpful to you?
It's a good question. I'll tell you one story that really helped with my attitude shift, but this is, again, just one story. My parents pushed me all the time. My friends were incredible to me. Um, it wasn't one specific scenario that, okay, this is it. It was the general mindset, and it was having incredible friends that took me out, whether it be restaurants, sports games, concerts. It, all of it helped. Kids of Courage,
Wow.
Kim Simcha, Mesameach, all these organizations played a part in helping me. Seeing other people who, were positive through their challenges, including yourself. But I'll tell you one story.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
when I was practicing learning how to walk again, I was able to, at that point, I was on the step down unit where a lot of the people on my floor had either heart or lung transplants. I happen to have not had a transplant, but since my situation was similar to them, they put me on the same floor. Now, at that point, I used to walk around the hospital floor, just a little section, and that was my exercise. Now, I couldn't do that all at once. So what I would do is I would go into different people's rooms, sit down, talk to them, and then continue. This is way before the hospital rules have changed. This is going back to 2014. So there was one guy that I was friendly with. He was an Army vet. Don't remember his name.
Yeah, I remember this story. It was very this gave me a lot of inspiration in my own
Yeah,
life. That's
I love saying this over, and I really believe that it helps so many people. I've said
yeah,
this story over probably to thousands of people at this point, tens of thousands, whatever the number is at
yeah,
this point.
great.
But I hope if your listeners could take this one thing, it's worth it. So I go into his room, and just to get there was difficult for me. And we go and we start talking. The hospital food's so terrible. We don't have this, we don't have that, and we
Mhm.
recount our days. Now at that time, I had something called a bed sore. It's extremely painful. Um, Bruise it's right on top of your pelvis. And your back. I'm sorry, the back of your butt. It basically is a pressure point when you sit, the skin separates, and the only way to really heal is to really get up and walk a lot. Now, at that point, I was not walking enough
Oh well.
yet, and it was very, very, very painful. And the hospital was extremely worried about infection. So the surgeon came in and he said, if it doesn't close by whatever date, we're going to have to manually close this. We're going to have to do surgery. As he's walking out,
Oh,
he sees my trach scar and my other scars. And he says to me, by the way, we could do some cosmetic surgery and shave it down, remove it. My mind starts racing. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, at that point, I'm like, what if my wife doesn't like it? What if, excuse me, excuse me, what if, this one doesn't like it? I was mainly, it's funny, worried about what my wife would possibly think about it.
yeah.
And I was so far away from that scenario, but that's, my brain was racing. Anyways, so I tell over this Army vet who, what this surgeon said. Now, just to give you a little bit of context, this Army vet would wear his hospital gown wide open. He had a scar straight down his chest from a double heart transplant. That
Wow.
meant his
Wow.
first heart transplant didn't work. They had to do another one. It's excruciating what he
Wow.
went through. He turns to me, he says, Ben, he went like this with such conviction. He went, scars of honor, and in such a powerful way. And that was one of the biggest lessons that anybody has ever taught me, which is to translate it for your listeners. Everybody has scars. Wear them with pride. For me, he said, you're going to get off your oxygen one day. What are you going to have to remember this time period? The only thing you're going to have when you look in the mirror is your scars. You're going to get rid of that. You should be proud of that. Be proud of
But
it.
also scars and honor that you said scars and honor, it could be anything,
Yeah.
doesn't have to be an actual scar. So exactly what you were saying before, you're getting very specific on what's going on with you and you're very open about it. Some people, it's hard to express ourselves to these type of things. It's scary. Maybe someone's going to judge us the way we think. So from the listeners, like, what do you think advice can you give these people? Not exactly scars, but scars of honor to express themselves and how they feel.
Yeah.
Like, was that easy for you in the beginning? Like,
Look, I've always been that type of guy. I think it's a personality thing. I think for people that are shyer, um, it's definitely more difficult, but I think that everybody has challenges. Some are emotional, psychological, physical. It
yeah,
doesn't matter what it is. Use that as your motivation. Don't let it define you. My
exactly.
sickness doesn't define me. It's a part of me, but it's not everything about me. I'm not only sick. I have issues with my lungs. It's a part. It affects me. No question about
Yeah.
that.
But also it can make you who you are also.
Yeah, in a positive way, as long as it's in a
Yeah,
positive way.
positive way.
So I would say to all your listeners, everybody has challenges for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be emotional, it could be psychological, whatever it may be for you. Don't let that define you in a negative way. Use that as motivation. Be open because others could really learn from you.
Yeah.
Somebody else could be going through a hard day
That's
and feel
true.
alone. And if they only knew that you also went through this or are going through this, it could help them go through something. So that's why
And
that's
yeah.
why I think
And it says something in Ethics of Our Fathers, something that an amazing quote. It's saying, someone who's wise learns from everybody. So, we all go through something. And I guess for me, making this, podcast, bringing it out and trying to get others to tell us how they feel, and it could help ourselves. Everybody can learn from everybody. It's just important to kind of find different ways and different examples and stories as you're giving us now to help us.
for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then what you're doing is incredible. You're sharing a platform for people to be able to give their stories over, and you yourself have so much to share about the struggles you've been through.
And for me, I could learn so much through my own struggles. And in life, sometimes life is hard. Life's not always easy. And we just have to be positive and keep pushing ourselves. And that's the most important thing.
Listen, everybody was given a challenge. It's almost a waste to go through it by yourself when there's so many others that could gain from it. It's so much more fulfilling when I know that I've been able to help people that are going through issues pertaining to oxygen. It makes your scenario so much better to know that what you did is not just for yourself, but you're able to help others through it. Think about the person that started out solo. He watched somebody die right in front of him. And because of that one person dying, which is very unfortunate, he said, I'm going to do something about it. And what he did was save countless lives. And
so I was listening to Ellie Bear on Meaningful People's podcast, and he was telling us about his story and how he got up after coma, which is a little different than your story. It's pretty cool how he was able to get up and start, just go on with his life a few days later, which is pretty crazy.
Ellie Beer is also somebody who did so much. I mean, he was a guy since a young age was an innovator who, how many people in Israel owe their lives to him? And it's not just one person, because these people get married and have children, and they have children. So it's mind-boggling how people can literally change the world. But sometimes we get lost and we think like, well, there's only a couple people they change. Each person that you affect in a positive way could change the whole world. Smiling at one person could change the way that they feel, and it's a domino effect. And to be honest, I'm not the best at that either. Sometimes I'm having a bad moment, or I'm not good to the people around me. I mean, it happens, but don't let that define you. Keep on moving. Try to do the best you can. And if you go with that attitude, God willing, you'll be able to impact the world in a better place.
So also as we said in Ethics of Our Fathers, another quote from, chapter 5, Mishnah 4, it's talking about Avraham Avinu, Abraham, one of our forefathers, who went through 10 tests in his life. And as we know, the name, how do you say test in Hebrew? Nisayon. And how do you say miracle? Nis. And how do you say lift up or flagpole? Is nisayon. So these words have these root words, and something that I learned from Pirkei Avot, and I studied with one of my friends, it discusses that Abraham had so many struggles, and obviously Abraham was not nowhere near anybody else, but of course everyone goes through their own challenge. But something we can learn here is, in our life, we have to be patient. Sometimes things are not going to be easy. And slowly we have to keep believing and keep being consistent with the belief. And eventually God is going to give us that strength, and he's going to end up giving us that strength. So something I'll say is nisayon. You go through a test, a challenge, and eventually you have to just keep believing, keep consistency. So that's nisayon, means to rise. So you're rising above the challenge.
Beautiful.
And now comes out a ness is a miracle, because if we trust in God and we're like, okay, we got this, consistency, patience, eventually God is going to give us the strength and he will give us that miracle and it'll come into reality. So I guess you've been through a challenge, things have been rough, but something that you can take from this and help other people. What's something that gave you this, you went through all this support and guidance and life brought you somewhere, right? But through this obstacle, what can you share to us and to help us through our own challenges? What kind of strategy or tips or some kind of help you can give us? Avraham gave it to us. Now, how do we take from maybe you or maybe somebody else? Like, what's your strategy? How'd you cope with it?
I would say try to stay positive always, no matter how difficult the challenges are. Acknowledge that they're challenges, but always try to see the positivity in them and just
Yeah.
let it be the moment if it's difficult. Don't let it define the full day, and don't let the challenge define you. I think those are key principles that have helped me. I've seen them help others as well. And you're able to move through adversity a lot more fluid when you're able to not let it stick to you. Um, I you see people that whatever their challenge is, when it defines them, they get stuck in this quicksand, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe they have every right to feel the way they do. Nobody could tell them, you know, whatever they're going through is not hard, but it's almost a disservice because they're not able to move forward in life, and it's very sad. It's very sad. I'm sure if I didn't have the right people around me and I had a negative attitude, I'd probably still be in some rehab somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I had the right, thank God, amazing people around me, and I was lucky to be able to push through, all those challenges. And I continue to have challenges. I have an incredible family. I have an incredible wife, and I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I have incredible people around me that
Wow.
keep me moving forward and to make me the best I
Okay.
can be. And hopefully I'm able to help others. One of the things that when you go visit a sick person is you try to be, empathetic to them, but you try to say, God willing, you're going to get through this and you're going to be able to accomplish.
And sometimes it gets just being there to be there, just that feeling that they want to be there for you.
Yeah.
But thinking about like one obstacle that you went through, what pushed you? What gave you that, positivity to get through that? That one obstacle that you maybe think of. I don't know.
So let's say it was let's just take walking because we were discussing it earlier. I think not thinking 20 steps ahead, just thinking right in front of you. Just put one foot in front of the other, especially with breathing. You can't think too far in advance. You have to think right in front of you. Imagine you're going on a treadmill. Don't think that what about I have to do this for 20 minutes? No, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, right in front of you. And I think that minimizes it and you don't get as overwhelmed.
Oh, well. So, yeah, exactly. So, like taking it day by day and just keep going and keep pushing ourselves. Might be hard, but just keep putting one foot in front. Yeah, that's a great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice to everybody. But now talking about, as we said, we spoke about getting advice, like getting inspired by somebody, right? So I said like, okay, you inspired us, right? But something I remember, and it wasn't just the advice you gave me about the scar, like so many advice, you gave me so much advice in my life, but I think just watching you be you, that's what inspired me. And that's something that sometimes we don't have to actually actively say something to inspire other people, but just us being us and pushing through that obstacle that we went through. So something I remember is, let me just give everybody to fill everybody in. Where do we meet each other? Because I'm trying to remember. Like I always thought of it. When did me and Ben meet? I'm trying to remember that.
I think it was on Kids of Courage. I think it was one of the trips.
Kids of Courage.
One of the trips. And what you're saying is so true. And I appreciate you saying that's very meaningful. You know,
Yeah.
you've also had a huge impact on my life as well, and definitely somebody
Thank
that's
you.
had challenges and very optimistic through them, and falling and one leg and then the other leg. It's somebody just say, let me just be in a wheelchair for life. I don't need this, and you keep on getting
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
But it's
Thank
very
you.
true what you're saying. The best leaders are leaders that just lead by example and not. You don't have to say anything. You just have to do, and
Yeah.
people will follow. And that's something like, we look at these people that write the most inspirational quotes or they're the best speakers. Not everybody's a great speaker. Not everybody's going to come on your
Yeah.
podcast, but for every listener, know that the way that you act, people around you notice, and that affects them either positively or negatively. So it's a big responsibility
Mm.
to be in this world. There was a great rabbi, Elchanan Wasserman, his name was, probably 150 years ago. And he used to say, your face is public domain. And it's really true. Your outward appearance could affect people. If, Mayor Collinson, excuse me, did a video. I recommend all your listeners watching this on YouTube, where he just started laughing on a train and he got the entire car to start laughing. It's infectious. It
That's
really is.
amazing.
I'm guilty
That's
as somebody
amazing.
that, I'm not always outwardly positive. Sometimes I have a negative face and you don't even realize it. And it's worked for me as well. We're not perfect, but to try to be even conscious a little bit about your outward
And
appearance will affect people.
and something that I thought of now, as we know, we're in the month of Adar, which is a month where we have to increase our happiness.
Yes.
And something I thought of, and I remember being in the hospital last year and trying to remember how this could help us. But now that we acknowledge that it's Adar right now, and every time we acknowledge it and we throw it in our brains, then we're extra happy. Then we're extra happy, and we have to remind ourselves. And I was in a hospital, and I was like, "How am I going to get through this? What's going to happen?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Adar." So then I was like, "Okay." So I started smiling and using that happiness, and something. It might be hard. It might be difficult. We might be in a hard situation, but now we know it's Adar. Let's smile extra, and that's something that can help us. So now we're going into this month, and Purim is coming. The holiday of Purim is coming up. Purim. And now let's try to push ourselves a little bit more since it's a time of happiness.
Beautiful. Beautifully said, Ike. Beautifully.
So what I'm saying, but what do you think about this whole idea? Like
I think it's amazing.
something that, yeah, so something that I know of Ben, something that he's a very, he pushed himself and he was hardworking to get through whatever he went through. And it was a long, many, many, many years, but eventually you're able to have this and use this. So something that I'm going to ask is, from your whole experience, how this lead you to like, do you think it helped you to become more positive? And
I think 1,000,000,000%. Either you become extremely negative or you become extremely positive. I don't see how you could stay in the middle after going through episodes like both of us have been through. You make a choice in life. You could either go right or you could go left. And when you have things that are taken away from you that your average person in society has, you could either be depressed about it or you could say, I'm so fortunate to have everything I do have. And I would tell that to all your listeners. You may be lacking in whatever area it may be. It could be financially, it could be physically, it could be mentally. Focus on what you do have and be so appreciative of that, because unfortunately most of us only start to appreciate when we lose something, and that's really sad. Now that my lungs don't work to the best that a regular person has, I
like, as you
appreciate
said,
it.
you're coughing as
Yeah.
the thing goes on. You're still like going through it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely have challenges. I definitely still have issues with
Yeah.
walking and there's
But that's part of our life. We have to keep
Yeah, you got to
pushing,
keep
keep
pushing. You
going.
can't let that define you and say, "Oh, I'm just going to sit all day." It affects for sure, but you can't define. And appreciating that your lungs do work and that you could breathe is an important thing that I hope that your listeners take out of this, is that it's what we
And
call the small things in life, is that we have to be.
so let's back up a little bit. We spoke about Kids of Courage, right? We met each other in Kids of Courage. Let's fill everybody in. What's Kids of Courage? Something from Kids of Courage is an organization that takes people on a trip, 10-day trip once a year. They have a few trips around the year, but it's conquering illness through adventure. And they take people and really, and I remember you being I don't think I knew you when you were a camper, but I heard you were also a
I'm the
counselor,
only Sam.
and then you became a camper,
Yeah.
and became a camper. So what went through your mind when that process went through? Is like, I was trying to help, and now I'm in this situation,
Right. Well, you could help in different ways. I think they're only Sandwich, which was a counselor in 2012, then a camper in 2014 or 2015, and then camper for a couple of years, and then I became a counselor again. So,
Wow.
you don't only have to help as a camper or counselor. It's whatever position you're in. For me, Kiss the Courage was incredible. I met so many incredible people, learned from so many incredible people, and
And as you said in the beginning, that helped you through your process. You had people visit you, you had
yeah,
maybe take you somewhere, like that.
socially, and just being able to do things that most people in our situation can't do by having the infrastructure that they created, which was really incredible and amazing. Some amazing times we've had on those trips, and then being able to give back and, you know, as a counselor again was also incredible. But sometimes you hear that the counselors get more out of them than the campers do, and that's because the campers
Yeah,
are
that's true
showing
sometimes.
what they go through, and counselors are like, I'm just a regular guy going through high school or college, whatever it is, and even think about it, and going to the bathroom by yourself, or being able to eat by yourself. Not everybody could do, and
Wow.
when you have,
We learned from so
yeah,
many people on this trip. Some people can't do anything from a little bit to something. And I even remember some kids like don't even have arms and they could play
yeah,
catch,
Nissan Cat,
and
special
they do
shout out,
things because they could and they could be
yeah,
themselves on this trip. And sometimes when you're somewhere else, you're on camp, you get a little judged.
yeah,
But here, everyone's going through something and everyone's going through a challenge.
yeah,
So I guess that's helpful. We can learn from all those
yeah.
that help us around
Yeah,
town.
I think Nissan Katz is somebody you should definitely interview.
Yeah,
He's an incredible
he's an
person
amazing
who
person. He's
doesn't really
great.
have arms. He's very short,
He teaches me
and
so.
he's
Oh my
just
God, this
a
guy's
ball of energy,
inspiration to
super
everybody.
positive. And I think when people see him, they're like, "Whoa!" Like this kid could play on his phone without. He just has
Yeah,
like hands at right here by his shoulders, and he's able.
and not even all his fingers, and he's still the guy puts on tefillin every day.
He just,
Inspiration,
yeah. I mean,
really.
his
Shout
parents are
out
also
to
incredible, but
Innocent.
yeah, he's an
Yeah,
incredible person. And there's so many people like him. So many people.
and then you even meet people that even without arms they can drive a car.
Yeah.
Like some people in this world don't even know that. Like
Hoodie, stuff like
go on this trip. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hoodie and some people go on this trip. If you ever hear of it, search Kids of Courage and go on the trip either if you're struggling and you want to be, go and have a good time. Go on the website and just sign up. It's an amazing organization.
yes, definitely.
Really shout out to Kids of Courage for really inspiring so many and,
Yeah,
helping a lot of people.
yeah, yeah.
And something I'm going to go back to your experience, did this coma change your perspective and what would you do differently from how you experienced?
So it for sure changed my perspective in terms of what could I do. What do you mean? What could I do differently?
So something you did your whole experience, you went through your whole coma. If you went back in time, how would you do it differently?
Which part? And
I don't know. Maybe maybe something that you did. Maybe you could have pushed yourself more. You could have been more positive. You
no,
could have been. I don't know. Is there?
I don't think I would change anything because I
You
am who
wouldn't
I
change
am
anything.
today because of that. So I don't think changing anything. Was it easy? Does it continuously easy? But no. But you know, this is who you are. This is what Hashem wanted. Hashem made us who we are. He created the people around us. He created us with ability and that enough to get us through
Yeah,
what we need to get through.
and as you said, you appreciate your daily activities. You can do. You can run. I don't know if you can run. I don't know your situation, but you can walk. You can go to the bathroom. You can brush your teeth in the morning, right? You can do all these things, and you probably think about this more than others.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely
Say
more
some days you have
conscious than
days
most people, only because I'm lacking in certain areas. So it just makes
yeah,
you. But that's what I would tell your listeners. I think that
yeah,
just try to be a little bit more conscious about what you're going through
yeah.
and try to be a little bit more grateful and appreciate.
Yeah. Sometimes we can even learn from the others that are struggling a bit more and kind of say, "Oh wow, I could do this." Others can't, and that's a perspective that we can. Okay, maybe something's not wrong. Maybe we don't have these physical disabilities, but if we look at other people that are going through that tough time, we can kind of understand them and kind of help ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and let's kind of this is a very big question. And based on your own experience, in life, through what you've been through, what is something that you can give others that are going through a similar situation or going through even day to day struggles, going through a very hard time. And, some people have months of struggles. What would you tell them? What kind of advice would you give these
I
people?
would say put one foot in front of the other and just try to be as positive as possible and surround yourself with positive people who want your best in mind and to just not let your challenge define you. Keep it real and just stay focused and you'll get through it, whatever it is. It may not be
Wow.
the outcome that you exactly wanted it to be. Sometimes we get things that we don't want, but you know that you did the best you could. And that's it. That's all you could do is the best you could. So just do it
And as you said,
100%.
like positivity was something that got you through it. And that's very big part, I guess,
Yeah.
to kind of keep pushing ourselves is just keep positive, keep being consistent, patient, and we're going to get there eventually. We're here for a short period of time, and we just got to make a difference in the world and be ourselves. Because if we're not ourselves, we're just going to hide it all our whole life.
Yeah.
And that's something that like your whole situation. You've been through these situations. It makes you who you are in a way. It's like Ben Taplin is just that guy that has been through a lot, but he keeps pushing himself. And something we can learn from Ben is going through all this. And then I remember Ben was going on vacation after all that, and he was keep pushing himself. And Ben was at every wedding. Something about Ben. He's been to every wedding. That's what I remember. The guy goes to every wedding.
Yeah, look, all these things I couldn't have done alone. I had I have incredible friends who helped me go through all these things. I've been lucky enough to climb mountains in Alaska, Hawaii.
With your oxygen tank. I remember
Yeah.
that, going around with the oxygen
I
tank,
climbed
just
the
doing it.
Acropolis in Greece
Wow.
together with a friend of
Wow.
mine who carried my oxygen. So just friends who were extremely patient and went along with it. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy for them. But the fact is now you're able to look back at those moments very fondly. And it puts a big smile on my face to be able to know that I've been able to do that. In terms of weddings, look, yeah, I'm very fortunate that I've been able to go to so many friends' weddings. And
Because if you have it, why not use it?
yeah, and
Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm too tired today.
right.
But if you have it,
Yeah.
use
It's
it
the same
before it's
thing.
gone.
It's what's your attitude? Are you looking at it as like, I want to figure out how not to go to the wedding or how to go to the wedding? And I didn't have a car at that for most of that time or for till not long ago. So I think
We
it was
went we went to a wedding together. We went to a
yeah,
wedding together.
yeah, and
I remember that.
yeah,
That was a good time.
yeah. But a wedding is a place of so much joy. Why wouldn't you want to be there? Good friends, good food, good energy. People should want to go to more weddings, not less. People look at it as a pain, and I just can't understand
Yeah.
why. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, you got to get dressed and you got to get there, but when you're there, you have so much fun. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess just use that ability and like just keep pushing. Keep, if we have it, let's use it. Like, had energy this morning. I went to shul and it's hard for me to go to shul, but I did it. I went to shul and it gave me, this clear mind today.
Yeah.
And I just thank God. It makes you feel good.
And you have to remember that moment when you're in bed and should I wake up? Should I not? Now
Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
remember those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually, Ben, you stopped using oxygen. How'd that even come about? Like you just stopped all of a sudden, or it was like a slow
It was a slow
process?
process and a lot of very, very hard work to get there. And some incredible.
And then you got married. That's a big accomplishment. You got married. That's huge.
Yeah, to an incredible.
How's that going? How's life
Fantastic.
married? How's that?
Fantastic.
Thank
My
God.
wife's amazing.
What is it? A year? It's a year now?
A little more than a year. We're at like a year and a half.
That wedding was crazy,
Yeah.
Ben. So many people. It was like that. You couldn't even breathe there. It was like, it wouldn't like it was. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a fun night.
And now Ben lives with his wife in Manhattan, and he lives his life. That's it. Because he got through his challenge. Every day we still keep pushing, keep going, and that's amazing that you've done all that.
Thank you.
And we really learned so much from Ben. Thank you, Ben, for giving us all you have and sharing all these stories with us. It's something that we can keep with us forever. We appreciate you, Ben. Thank you for joining. And by the way, this whole podcast was just because I wanted to get on the phone with you, because lately it was hard to get on the phone with you. And I'm happy that we finally got it. I'm just kidding. But
thank you.
I'm very happy that we got this conversation going. I miss you a lot. And when I come back, I got to see you. We got to hang out.
Looking forward.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. We had an amazing hero who joined us today. We really thank you for giving us a little guidance, a little, through our own struggles, and we can use whatever you gave us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have an amazing day. Shabbat shalom. And I really appreciate for your time, and we'll do more things together.
Looking forward, Ike. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great to
I
see
hope
you.
this takes off. I hope that you're able to give so much inspiration to so many people, more than what you do now, which is already a lot. And you have an ability and capitalize on that. And I hope that you and all your friends and all your listeners are able to capitalize and make the world a better place.
You too. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today.